Happy Friday night to you, geeks. It is the Baldy from the Beardy and the Baldy, or Sean, as I like to be called. Um, how's it going? How was your week, everybody? Did you have a good one? Mine was alright. I'm having a little bit of trouble with the YouTube channel, and that's why you haven't seen me on here for quite a while, actually. And I apologize because I have been wanting to post videos as soon as my mind can process, why don't I talk about this, or why don't I talk about that, or whatever. I'm still kind of getting into the groove of what I'm trying to do when I want to post a video. Um, Jesse's been doing a great job with his pull lists and talking about the stuff that he gets on a weekly basis, or the unboxings and whatnot, and that's awesome. I'm really happy that he's able to do those videos in the meantime, and in between times when we get to actually sit down together and work out a review of something we really want to review. About going on 2 weeks ago now, we actually sat down and did a review of Force Awakens, and unfortunately that review went so long that I have not been able to get it off my phone. There's error messages left and right of me trying to import this in the couple different ways that I know how to import it up to YouTube, so we're going to have to sit down and redo that one at some point. And thankfully Jesse is more than cool with the idea of wanting to talk about that movie. So we'll get to that at some point, I promise. It will be up at some point. But the reason why I feel like we're playing catch up a little bit, to be honest, it's there's been so much geek stuff in the last decade at this point that it is really frustrating that I didn't think of wanting to do something like this before the last few months, to be honest. I didn't have a way of being able to do this until the last few months with the idea of, at least using my cell phone to do it. So in that way, I'm a late bloomer. I've always been a late bloomer, so it is what it is. But I want to put up reviews either current or retro or nostalgic, or however you want to call them. Past movies that I have enjoyed or that matter to me, and past movies that matter to Jesse and that we think are going to be worthwhile to give our opinions about, as well as the new current movies that are out there. I know we're both really getting excited over Captain America Civil War coming out next week, and that's one that we are definitely going to do one way or the other. We're going to get that review up that weekend, and we're going to talk about that one without a doubt, and make it a lot more timely than we've been able to, as far as I'm concerned. But for the time being, instead of the shoulda, coulda, wouldas and the what ifs and all that kind of stuff, I'm actually having a proud geek dad night tonight. And I wanted to talk about that and a couple other fun little things here and there. But I had a very, very proud moment this evening. Going back to The Force Awakens, I got to borrow the DVD of it from Jesse, and my family and I have watched it about 1.5 times now since he let me borrow it. And it actually shocked me how much my daughter has actually taken to this movie. I'm not playing it to program her in any way about female heroes or whatever. I've tried having her watch the original Star Wars more than a couple times now, and every single time, usually by the time that 3PO and R2 end up on Tatooine, boom, she's off doing something else or whatever. In the case of Force Awakens, she grabbed onto this thing, and now it's like she wants to see it, and she remembers the characters' names. So like when Jesse came over for the night we wanted to review it, we wanted to watch it again, and I was explaining to her, okay, so the girl is Rey, and she is going to be a hero and a good guy in the movie, and she's going to figure stuff out for herself, and Finn and who he is, Poe, and she has a basic knowledge of a lot of this stuff, but she doesn't know the mythology and whatnot. I mean, she's 4, so there's a curve that we're grading on here, but um, it's it's still just interesting to see what she grabs onto and what she takes from things. Um, so last week we watched the first half up until um, Kylo Ren ends up kidnapping Rey and taking her off in his ship, and Han Solo gets to see like they're at the ruins of Kanata's cafe or cantina or whatever you want to call it, and Han sees Kylo Ren across the field of battle and all that stuff. And I basically it was going on 11:30 that night, and I'm like, okay, we gotta stop right now because you have to get to bed no matter what. So in my family, we have what we call fun day or Friday fun day, and she gets to stay up a little later on Friday nights. So I mentioned to her, hey, when we stay up late, do you want to watch Star Wars with me again? And she got excited. I'm like, awesome, let's do this. So we put on the movie, and the first half that she already saw, she wasn't too into. She asked about Rey though. She wanted to see the parts with Rey and the BB-8 stuff. She actually calls him Baby 8, which I love. I think that's awesome. And so we get up to the point where we ended the movie last weekend, and she was, like I said, she was into the movie. She actually was disappointed we had to turn it off last week. She was getting into it, and tonight we got up to that scene where there's Kylo Ren taking Rey away again, and I kind of nudged her. She's playing on her own iPad, and I'm like, hey, we're at the part now that you didn't get to see the rest of the movie. How about you sit down with me and watch it? And she actually physically she looked at her iPad, turned it off, sat it down, sat in my lap, and she watched the rest of the movie with me. And I really wish I would have videotaped it. I really wish I would have made a video of it. Because as a father and as a geek and as someone that I grew up immersed in all of the things that I still enjoy, like Star Wars, like superheroes and comic books, and all of the things that make me interested in pop culture the way I'm into. So I've known about Star Wars, and I know all the things about it, but I see fathers who post videos online of showing their sons or showing their daughters the first time that they get to see, like Vader revealing who he is to Luke, or just watching the trailer for Force Awakens, or watching whatever. I mean, there's so many videos on YouTube with reactions to trailers, and just parents sharing what matters to them and passing it to the next generation. So tonight was a great example of that for me, and I'm so proud to have witnessed it, because up until this point she's been into a lot of the standard stuff you'd expect a child of her age to be into. You have your Pixar movies, obviously. You have things like the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, or Kung Fu Panda. Big on a lot of the Disney stuff, especially the princesses, which, that's fine. That's cool. I'm not trying to guide her in a direction that matters to me. I'm guiding her in whatever she has an interest in at this point. But I do like to pepper in a little bit. Here's what Dad thinks is cool. And if she grabs onto it, great. She's actually enjoyed the first Avengers movie. She loves the Captain America first Avenger movie. So, she's grabbed onto some of the stuff that I enjoy as well. And it warms my heart to share it. I mean, I'm sure every parent out there can understand how that feels. But there was something different about watching this particular movie with her for me tonight. So I'm sitting there on the couch with her, and she's sitting in my lap, I'm not looking at her face. I'm seeing the back of her head, basically. But she's watching this movie, and I know she's watching it. She's invested in this movie. And I mentioned to her, hey, we need to see what happens to Ray. And she actually she wants to know. She really got into it. Like, what happens to her next? Okay, let's sit and watch it. Well, you get up to the sequence where, spoilers for those of you who have not seen Force Awakens, you get up to the sequence where Kylo Ren and Han Solo are face to face. And you have the moment where, Han thinks he's going to pull his son into the light side, and Kylo Ren obviously, digs in deep on the dark side and ends up running his father through. For me, that moment didn't really do much for me in the theater. I guess at 37 years old, there's a lot of things that you cling to from your childhood that they stay with you and it becomes sacred, I guess, is the best way I can describe it. I am a fan of what-if scenarios. I'm a fan of people looking at things and saying, well, you could tell it in a different way and it might have more impact or whatever. Like there's a couple of different videos actually on YouTube that are what-ifs of the prequel trilogy, for instance. And I love watching those because it reminds me of sitting around with my buddies on a Friday night or on a Wednesday night after New Comic Day hit. And either we'd be at my apartment or we'd be out at Applebee's or we'd be somewhere where we'd just be, being able to sit there and talk. And we'd kick around, well, what if they could have done this differently or that differently? But, in the case of the stuff that was sacred to me growing up, I think there's a certain amount of, I don't want to say the magic's gone. I want to just say, like, the expectations are almost too colossal or too monumental to even invest the excitement sometimes in something, because after 30 years of having a trilogy the way that you know it to be and the way that you loved it to be, it's really hard to start investing the same amount of childish enthusiasm. And I don't mean childish in a bad way. I mean like childlike enthusiasm. I should have worded it differently. But the childlike enthusiasm that you invested in watching Star Wars when you were younger, and then you'd want to run outside and, play Star Wars with, grabbing a flashlight and having that be your lightsaber, or, even making your hand do this and you're, Han Solo when you're running around shooting at stormtroopers or whatever. But for me, I guess I've kind of tempered that about myself as I've gotten older, because for every movie that gets me purely excited on that childlike level, like Iron Man, Captain America First Avenger, the first Transformers movie, the Michael Bay one, which I might get flack for that, but I'll tell you what, when that movie was hitting, that movie for me was like, this is like the new version of E.T. in a sense for me. The emotional part wasn't nearly there as much, but for some reason, that one I could still look to and say, I found that to be enjoyable, and it was fun, and it brought out the kid in me again. Avengers is another one, and Star Trek, when they rebooted that one. I mean, some of these movies, they transcend me worrying about are they going to be good, or they transcend me with my energy level or excitement level or whatnot. So, I don't know. I don't want to say the magic's gone for me. I don't want to say I don't have the passion for it anymore. But there is a certain amount of, you've seen good and bad after a while, after, 30 plus years of watching these movies and loving these movies, that, I know when The Force Awakens came out, the previews were exciting to me. The previews were really making me go like, I love that I don't know a whole lot about this movie. I love that this feels old school in a sense, where you're getting broad strokes, but you're not getting details, and the story isn't completely spelled out for you in these trailers. But I tempered myself a lot. I was like, well, I don't want to be one of the fans who says this is the greatest movie that ever will happen in my entire life because it's now the next episode that no one expected to get in their lifetime anymore. I didn't want to be that guy. And to be honest, I'm still not that guy. I'm actually not to go on a tangent, but I'm actually hoping that whenever they reboot Superman again, that will be the one that I'm putting that much hope on, to be honest, compared to Star Wars in any way, shape, or form, mostly because it feels like they're in the right hands no matter what. So, I figured I'd like it. I didn't leave the theater going, wow, that was the greatest movie I've seen all year or any of that. I was like, that was cool. All right. At least I got to see the biggest movie of the year, or one of the biggest movies of all time. And I left the theater just like, okay, whatever. But watching it tonight with my daughter, I started getting that geek dad proud about it. Like, again, you have that scene with Han Solo and Kylo Ren, and they're talking, and it's the moment when Kylo's gonna dig deep, and boom, he has to kill his father in order to finally make his whole journey to the dark side almost complete or whatever. And that happened, and my daughter turns around and she goes, he killed his daddy. And I'm like, yeah, he had to do that. He shouldn't have done. She goes, no, he shouldn't. He should be nice to his daddy. And I'm watching this just like, this is affecting her. This is really hitting these points for her. And then, she watched Han Solo topple, and he's falling down the, whatever that ravine or that pipe is that he's falling down, kind of like the Emperor in Return of the Jedi. And she genuinely felt a loss with that. She needed me to hug her, and it's not that I'm amazed that she needs to feel these things, but there's a certain amount of, like, when she's witnessed stuff like this in other movies, it didn't affect her nearly this way. She was invested in this movie. So I'm sitting there like, okay, I'm actually, I'm looking at it through her eyes, and I'm seeing what she sees about it a little bit better. And there's the adventure side of things, the fantastical side of things, and honestly, like, I'm starting to get into this movie way more than I ever expected to be. But I gotta admit, I have to admit, so she's not happy about Han Solo dying, and even though I saw it coming from a mile away while I was in the theater, I'm still not a fan that they killed him off, although I know Harrison Ford himself wanted to see Han Solo either not make it into Jedi or die in Jedi. Partially, I'm guessing, because he just didn't want to deal with the character anymore, but partially because it would have been a huge... It would have been something to show there are stakes involved in what's really going on in the galaxy far, far away. I still agree with him to an extent. Like, I personally kind of wish he went out in a blaze of glory in Jedi for some reason, although, obviously that's not what happened. But anyway, long story short as I can make it, so she's invested in this death. She's invested in Han Solo, and she's really getting into everything. And then you have the confrontation between Kylo Ren, Finn, and Rey. And already, every time she sees Kylo Ren, she points out, that's the bad guy, and she'll see what he does, and she is not having it. She's not thrilled that Kylo Ren is treating people the way he's treating them in the movie, which I think is I love that she notices that, and I love that she's calling him out on this, because it makes me feel like at least, you know, her perception of right and wrong is right on par with what I'm hoping at this point. And then, you know, she watches the fight between Finn and Kylo Ren after Ren's thrown Rey into a tree and whatnot. And after Ren takes care of Finn and he's about to use the Force to grab the lightsaber, the fallen lightsaber, the Anakin Skywalker one, I nudge her just a little. I go, now watch what's about to happen. And I'm explaining to her quickly on the fly about how the Force works. And she's sort of understanding it, and when the lightsaber flies, not to Ren, but it lands in Rey's hands, the minute that happens, my daughter turns around and gives me the biggest smile, where it's not a smile of happiness and it's not a smile of excitement. It's a smile of her knowing that something good is about to happen. And to be honest, there's a few scenes in Force Awakens that really got me in the theater. The first probably being the whole sequence between Poe and Finn when they're trying to escape, and just their back and forth. I enjoy that so much. It makes me smile to I've only seen it like 4 times now, so I'm not really saying I've seen it a billion times and every time I feel like this, but every time I've seen it to this point, I get such a smile on my face watching the two of them have their back and forth, and it's almost like they're geeks dealing with a situation, because it almost feels like the way that it would be talking, like if I was talking to Jesse or if I was talking to another friend and we were in a situation. It's the whole, we're gonna do this. I love that sequence. I love that so much. But the one that really emotionally grabs me from the movie is that moment of the lightsaber landing in Rey's hand. And actually, like, opening night, when I saw it, it gave me chills. You have the melody kicking in, the like hero melody from Star Wars, and you have her just standing there with the lightsaber, and then she just gets into the position. And tonight, my daughter just had this look like she knew the girl was going to take care of business, and it was one of those sly kind of smiles. And in that moment, I will not lie to you, I Kevin Smith, and I don't know if that's a real true thing, but I am now saying that's what it's called, because I cried. I cried watching this movie with my daughter because I loved that she got it in that moment. I mean, it was phenomenal to watch the way that she viewed the end of this movie. Truly, like, there are more times than not lately that she can make, as corny as this is going to sound, she makes my heart soar so many times. She makes my heart like 80 billion times bigger than it feels like it should be some days, with the amount of goodness that I see in her and the amount of happiness and excitement she gets out of life, and just the little things, even, daddy I love yous, and daddy, and when I come home and she's so excited to see me. But this was a whole different level. This was the proudest moment that I've had with my daughter in the 4 years of her existence to this point, because it wasn't about me imparting geekdom to her. This was the moment I think she embraced the geekdom. It was almost like the the geekdom awakens. That's what happened tonight. And she adored that lightsaber duel between them. She was so into that moment with two of them having to go up against each other and what's going to happen next. And, leading the whole way through the rest of the movie, she loved seeing the X-Wings go into the trenches and blow up Starkiller Base. She loved watching the whole end and what's gonna be the deal with Rey and Chewbacca. Are they gonna be now the new pilots of the Millennium Falcon and all? And I'm talking to her about this stuff as she's getting into it with me, and it worked. And what got me is I've had a few moments here or there where I'll have a tear come down my face depending on what we're watching. There's more than a few movies that she's seen where I know I'm going to end up being a little emotional by the end of it, because it's just the way it is for me to watch these movies. I'm not ashamed or afraid to admit that I cry sometimes at movies. Or as I said, I Kevin Smith every now and then, is the way I'd put it. If you haven't seen his videos of him watching The Flash and crying, you'll get an idea of what it's like to sit through one of these things with me, if you check him out, because I'm not laughing at the guy. Like, I laugh only because I know. And I'm not laughing at him in a way where I'm poking fun at the guy at all. And, it affects me. Like, a lot, there's been so many times in my life where something affects me in a certain way, and I can't help it. It just does. And that's the thing that gets to me the most. It's like, life events sometimes don't get me that emotional, but I watch a movie and, like, nothing. It's so easy for some reason. So, yeah, I'm that guy. That's all there is to it. But the geekdom awakened tonight. I'm positive of this. She wants a Rey lightsaber. She wants to know what happens next. Like the whole end sequence with Luke Skywalker and Rey. She looks at me and she goes, well, now what? And I'm like, we gotta wait another year. And she actually was not happy with me about that. She did not like the idea that we have to wait to see and get to the next part of the story. And to be honest, up until tonight, I want to see the next movie, but I'm not like, oh my God, I need to know what happens. But the fact that she awakened that in me tonight really did push me to go, I'm thinking theories now. I'm thinking, well, what's going to happen in the next one? I'm also thinking that I'm pretty pumped to go see the next one, to be honest, because I didn't think that there was as much versatility about the story when I saw it in the theater. And now when I look at this movie, I think to myself, there's a couple different ways they could do some of these things. And how is this going to play out? And, is this going to work out the way you hope? And, I mean, to be honest, it's Disney. There's a part of me that's like, yeah, it's probably going to work out for the best in the end. But there's a part of me going, maybe they'll do something crazy. Who knows? I know online, I won't get into it too much, but I know that there was a leak, I think it was just this week. Someone posted on Reddit that they had an idea of what was going to happen in episode 8, and they revealed the mystery behind who Rey is. I'm not sure what to make of that theory, and if that's really where they're going with it. Looking at Force Awakens tonight with that theory in my mind, to be honest, I'll admit it, I can see that being the way that it's going. I'm not sure if I want it to be the way it's going, to be honest, but we'll see. I don't know. I mean, there was a leaked script on, I think it was on Reddit as well before Force Awakens came out. And I read that one because it's the whole thing, like I said before. You have your childhood excitement, and the things that you grew up with become sacred, and the things that are new, sometimes they might not work for you because you spent a couple of decades knowing this is what worked for you. So having something new come in and maybe it not feeling right. When I saw The Force Awakens in the theaters, I honestly didn't feel 100% like this was a Star Wars movie at that point. I felt very much like this was Star Wars on ADD. The way the scenes seemed to move so quickly between each other, and There wasn't a lot of lingering, and even the emotional moments, they didn't have that lingering feeling the way that the old school version of Star Wars did when I was a kid. They took time in those. It was an ode to older movies, and it was also, they were made in a time where it wasn't as flashy of cutting and flashy editing and having to hurdle through the storyline quite the same way as audiences now expect things to be. So I had to take that into account, and to be honest, I guess I'll say this much. I'll say this much about it. I am now a truly converted fan. I enjoy that movie. There's still things about it that aren't perfect, but I'm really hard pressed at this moment to even think of what is a perfect movie. I don't even know what a perfect movie is. Every movie to me has something about it that will make you just go, well, there's this that maybe is a weak link or something that isn't quite the way that it might be or it should be in order for it to feel like there's nothing about this movie I can complain about or even like point out. Force Awakens has more than a few moments for me where it's like, why is this the way it is? But the problem with Force Awakens is it's the first of a new trilogy, and we know all the answers from everything previously. So we don't have all the answers anymore. We are now as in the dark as we've ever been because the expanded universe is off the table, and there isn't a real guideline of where this might go. There's the theory of where it could go. But there isn't any definites of how this is going to play out. So that, for me, is like, it's frustrating because, it was so much cooler growing up to have all three of them in video, and you can watch them all back to back, and you get all your answers, you get the whole saga. And it's the nature of the beast. It's the nature of storytelling. I mean, hell, I read comic books, I watch TV shows, and I go to movies. I mean, I remember when the first Lord of the Rings came out in 2001, and how, I didn't want to wait a year to get to the next movie of that one. So, it is what it is. For the time being, hey, we got good stuff still, because you know what? This Rogue One movie that's coming out this year, I'm actually pretty pumped to see that one. I love the idea that now Disney is doing something that Lucas probably had no intention and no interest in doing up until this point. Telling side stories in this universe, telling side stories of this galaxy far, far away. Did they need to do that necessarily the way that Lucas had him planned out? Not really, because he was so focused on the Skywalker legacy, or the Skywalker family. And now that Disney has the rights to everything, well, it's interesting to see that they want to take avenues like that. They want to explore these uncharted waters of, you could do a standalone Star Wars movie, and then you could do a episode 8 after that, and then you can do another, like a Boba Fett or a Yoda or a Han Solo, which those are ones that for me are a little bit of a slippery slope. I don't necessarily need a Han Solo film, which that's not actually ironic to say. I'm actually more curious of characters that have nothing to do with the Star Wars through line of the last trilogy and the new trilogy in that way. I mean, Han Solo, I don't really feel like there's an actor out there who's going to come out and be like, I can play this in this day and age. Han Solo was very much Harrison Ford. It's almost like trying to recast Tony Stark, or it's, can you think of anyone that you'd want to see playing Tony Stark other than Robert Downey Jr.? Can you imagine anyone trying to play Han Solo, or for that matter, even Indiana Jones, and not have it be Harrison Ford? Although after the last Indiana movie, who knows? It's interesting. That's all I'll say is I'm enjoying the potential here. And I'm enjoying a new trilogy again, which I wasn't expecting that to happen the way it happened tonight. But I'll tell you what, I might not get to go out to the movies the way that Jesse can every week. I might not be able to go see the newest things every time they come out. It's just not on the it's not in the cards for me at this moment in my life. I have to pick and choose which movies I'm really excited for, and I go to those. So, if there's something that's maybe I'd want to see it, maybe not, I'm not going to get to it at this point. So, it's the nature of being a parent. And there's a lot of sacrifices on top of just what you get to watch and what the picking and choosing of the things that you want to do. But I'll tell you what, there are those moments like tonight where, my daughter and I got to share that experience of Star Wars together. And it might not be the Star Wars that I grew up with, but what mattered to me, I guess, is it was Star Wars. And I know she wants to watch it again. And you know what? I'm going to let her watch it again. And I'm going to sit with her again. And we're going to enjoy it together. And it was a good night. And she actually called me on it too. She called me on the Kevin Smith moment for me. She was talking about it, and she was so excited about Rey, and she looks at me. She's like, she's going to save the day. And I'm like, you're right. She's going to save the day. And then she points to my cheek. She goes, what's that? And I'm like, Daddy's just needing a moment. It's okay. And she's like, but your eyes. And she got so concerned about the fact that I'm crying. And I'm like, honey, this is a good thing. It's okay. So yes, like me saying that to her, the Force Awakens, it's a good thing for me as far as I'm concerned. The new trilogy is a new thing and a good thing. And the new way that Star Wars is being done is a good thing. And it took me a while to embrace this the way that other people could very easily. A lot of good things. Being a dad is a really good thing. I was very, very proud of my daughter tonight, and I'm very happy that she is embracing the fact that, here's a girl who is going and matching up against a guy who's trying to do evil, and she's trying to stop him. And she got to witness that, and it didn't need to be Wonder Woman. It didn't need to be any superhero character necessarily. It just mattered that it was a girl who was doing something, and she was brave, and she was trying to be strong, and she was protecting people. And as my daughter said, she was saving the day. And saving the day is a good thing. So, that being said, bring it on, Disney. I'm excited to see what you got, and so is my daughter at this point. And anyway, that was my Geek Dad rant for the end of April 2016. I might do a few of these where I'm going to have little bits about, her and what it's like to be, like raising a child and having them discover this stuff for the first time as well. But yeah, tonight was a memorable one, and I really wanted to at least document it in one way, shape, or form. So this is how I did it. And this is good. Definitely. It's a good thing. So anyway, this proud Geek Dad / Baldy / Sean is wishing you a good weekend, and I will catch you next time.